Hey, Noah Tichy here for Gearspace. Today, I get to introduce you to the Bettermaker Valve Stereo Passive Equalizer. I'm going to offer you a walkthrough of the technical features of the device, and then take it for a spin myself so that by the end of the video, you'll have a better idea of what it is and what it can do. The Bettermaker Valve Stereo Passive Equalizer, which I'm going to alternate shortening to VSPE so that we don't run out of time, is a fully analog passive equalizer that integrates seamlessly with a dedicated plugin that offers all sorts of additional functionality. Now, when you think passive equalizer, you probably think round, warm bottom end and a light, airy, high-frequency range. The folks at Bettermaker added to that sonic character arguably the best of several generations of electronics in an amplifier circuit to bring the output level back up to match that of the input, as well as to offer the possibility of some tube saturation where needed. Now, when I say the best of several generations of electronics, what am I talking about? The tubes in the VSPE were produced in the USSR in the 70s and 80s exclusively for the needs of the Soviet military. They were intended for use in the electronics of ballistic missiles and fighter jets, so they had to meet the strictest standards in terms of durability and electrical parameters. As such, they were designed to minimize the phenomenon of microphonics and ensure high parameters even after extended use. You simply won't find many tubes in which this much attention to detail went into ensuring an extremely low level of noise and distortion. Each tube that left the factory and later made its way into Bettermaker's collection was selected during strict tests of all parameters and has an individual military acceptance stamp. Aside from the new old stock Soviet vacuum tubes, the VSPE contains low noise FET input Burr-Brown op amps and Bettermaker's own in-house manufactured TT1 audio transformers. And here are the specs. Feel free to pause the video, grab a screenshot, and come back to those later if you want. Your low boost and low cut bands operate at 4 corner frequencies, 20, 30, 60, and 100 Hertz, that are selectable via these up-down momentary buttons. You get a lot of options for your high boost target frequency, including 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, 20, and 28 kilohertz, also selectable via up-down momentary buttons. This central knob controls the shape of your high boost filter curve, with a narrower filter response widening out as you turn the dial clockwise. A lot of this will be much easier to conceptualize when we get into the plugin momentarily, and you'll see why. You get a single step-through button for selecting between the 5, 10, and 20 kilohertz corner frequencies for your high cut. This step-through button also doubles as the heat on-off button when gain mode is enabled. The 5 LED above the heat marking will light up when this function is enabled. When heat is enabled, the internal gain stage drives the vacuum tubes harder to add saturation and color to your sound, and an output pad kicks in simultaneously to keep the overall gain constant. Other controls on the front of the device include the power button, which you can hold to toggle between on and standby, the engage button that you can press for a true bypass. There's a gain button as well. In normal mode, all 5 knobs control various sections of the passive filter. When the gain button is engaged, the high cut knob changes its function to allow you to adjust the output level of the unit with a plus or minus 8 dB range. To toggle back to normal mode, just press the gain button again. To reset the passive EQ to a flat frequency response with all filters set at 0, you just hold the gain button for 2 seconds. All controls on the front panel will blink, and the unit will be reset to defaults. So that's it for the front of the device. It is relatively simple, especially if you're already familiar with some of the better-known passive EQs from the mid-20th century, upon which a lot of other devices have been modeled. When it comes to workflow, there is something to be said for keeping it simple where possible. And speaking of simplicity, there isn't really much to say about the back of the unit. You've got 2 pairs of XLR sockets to carry the left and right audio input and output signals, a USB socket for connecting the device to your computer, and a non-locking connector for the unit's 12-volt DC external power supply. As I alluded to earlier, the VSPE is a fully analog passive EQ that can be controlled digitally through a Bettermaker plugin. So let's have a look at how that works. The graphic user interface is resizable and initializes with just a representation of what you see when you look at the device itself. The communication between the hardware and the plugin is two-way, so you can plug values in through the plugin and see them expressed on the LED light indicators of the device. Or you can adjust the dials manually and then see your work in the plugin. Beyond that, there is some additional functionality that the plugin unlocks, including mastering grade digital high pass and low pass filters, the capacity to recall and automate all parameters within your DAW through what's called session snapshots, quantize or step mode for your hardware knobs, dual mono operation, independent high and low frequency auditioning, and a spectrum analyzer through which you can adjust the VSPE filters by dragging handles on the EQ curve graph. Enough talk, let's take the VSPE for a spin. We're going to start with some low-hanging fruit. I have here a kick drum that to my ear is a bit on the floppy side. It's not nearly as punchy as I would like it to be. So in order to bring out that punch, I'm going to do what's called the pull-tech trick, which is where you do a pretty steep low cut, and then by about the same value, you do a low boost. And you might be wondering, well, don't those cancel each other out? They don't cancel each other out, and it's because of the nature of the EQ curve. So what you end up with is not a flat line, but a boost, a pretty significant boost in the low end, and a pretty significant attenuation in what we would call the mud frequencies, which are, I haven't targeted this at the right area yet. Let's go to 30 or 60 is more like it. Yeah, so we've got this big attenuation between 500 hertz and like 1500 hertz. And you can hear the difference. Here's the bypass. And here's the beginnings of the pull-tech trick. You've gotten rid of a bunch of those middle frequencies that are not adding anything to the punch and certainly not helping to tighten this up. So there's a start. Now, if you're listening to this video on your phone, or on computer speakers, you might not be able to hear a lot of this. And so what I'm going to do for your benefit, and for the benefit of whoever ends up listening to this kick drum when I add it into a production, is I'm going to add a little bit of like a slap frequency that's going to be somewhere around 5K. I'm going to boost that. Because that resonance, that sort of clicky, kind of slappy resonance, is what cues to your ear that you're hearing a kick drum if you don't get all of those big sub-frequencies. So sub-frequencies are there, but if your playback doesn't have the ability to recreate those sub-frequencies, then we've got a little something for you as well. So here it is with, here it is without. Back to with. And without. Yeah, it just sounds like someone needs to tune up that drum, doesn't it? So now that we've tightened up our kick, let's see if we can fatten up our snare. I've got a snare here that is decidedly thin. I'm sure there are thinner snares out there, but this one's pretty thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get over to this 100 hertz target, and I'm going to do something very similar, where I'm going to boost the low end and also attenuate the low end. Yeah, okay. So we've already got a little bit more bottom to it. Now the fundamental frequency for this snare, as you can see in the analyzer here, is around 200 hertz. And so by boosting and attenuating at this 100 hertz target, we haven't lost that fundamental. We're still there, and we haven't done anything to it. But what we have done is lost a little bit of this middle range here. So to hear the difference so far, yeah, got a lot more body to it. But now we need to do something, I suspect, around the 6K, maybe 8K. Let's try 6K. Okay, so we've brought out some resonance there. Let's check the without, with. Moving in the right direction. Maybe we just need more of everything. And maybe we need to get some gain going. And maybe we need the heat. There's the body. Okay, we have found the body. Okay, I like it at 6K, that boost, and let's just go for it. Little less attenuation in the low cut, all of the boost, and I think that high boost is 6K. I think that's where it needs to be. All right, so let's hear the difference. That's the original snare. And here's the punchier, fuller bodied snare. Without, with. Without, with. This last example is a piece of music of mine that is mostly finished. For the most part, I'm happy with it. I like the balance, I like the fullness, but what I want to see is what I can get by running it through the VSPE, strictly for the tube. So if we're talking flat EQ, just running it through the electronics to see what kind of warmth I can get out of those. I might also want to see what I can do with the high end. It's a little sparse above 2K, 3K, 4K. So I want to see if that tube saturation and a little bit of a high boost, a flatter high boost, gives me more to listen to. So let's see. I'm going to start, of course, by seeing what the difference is as I engage it. It's got a little bit more of a packaged feel. And I think I've lost some of the presence, so I'm going to gain it up a little bit. Okay, and I'm of course going to engage the heat. Yeah, so that's an immediately perceptible difference. People joke about whether or not you can hear warmth in music, whether or not you can hear the difference in analog equipment and that sort of thing. This is immediately perceptible, even with flat EQ. It's just a lot livelier. Now, let's see what we can make of the high boost. We'll start at 5K. So here's without. Yeah, distinctly darker without. And we've got a brighter character. In addition to the liveliness that you get from the saturation, we've got just a lighter character generally because I have just brought out the higher end through this high boost. Now let's compare. All right, so this is without. Obviously, I needed this. Here's it with. Without. Very dark. With. So bright and really lovely. I don't think I'm going to be able to listen to this without going through the VSPE. All right, so let's call it there. What should be obvious from just these few examples is that there is a world of possibility with the Bettermaker valve stereo passive equalizer. Whether you're here for the classic passive equalizer experience, the new old stock military grade Soviet vacuum tubes, or any of the other top shelf electronics inside the device, or the fact that it pairs seamlessly with your digital workflow, there is something in the Bettermaker valve stereo passive equalizer that will open up some new possibilities for you. With all that said, I hope this video has been useful to you. If it has, please give it a like, subscribe to the Gearspace Forum YouTube channel, hit the notification bell. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time.